Hey guys, my name is Julian and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to check out the Tube Screamer Mini by Ibanez. Okay guys, so this is a pedal that obviously, there's probably millions of videos about it. And the reason why I'm doing one is because I think I use it a little bit different than what most people use it. Most people tend to just put, the overdrive at 0 and then crank the volume. And then that does give you a really nice push on like any kind of tone, whether it's a clean amp or an overdriven amp or a high gain amp, right? So, that's all great. But that's not the way I use it, and I think a lot of people think that that's the only way they can use that. So let's check out actually what tones we can get, because I think you can get like overdriven, you can get some crunchy kind of tones, you can get a really nice lead sound with this pedal. So let's check out some tones and then we'll talk a little bit about it. Okay guys, so here is the deal. We're gonna use my Orange TH30 on the clean channel. I will use the gain channel just to see how that tightens up. That's gonna be towards the end of the tone check. Now, as always, I'll do from the lowest gain possible to the highest gain possible on the pedal. So if you're looking for like a certain gain stage, just kind of look at the tone part on the video timestamps if you're just looking for that. Now, I'll be using my Harley Benton ST Modern Plus. I changed the pickups on this guitar, but if you want to see the review, the stock sounds, or the new sounds on this guitar, I'll check out some of my videos from like 2 or 3 weeks ago. All right, guys, and let's just check it out. So our clean tone, right, without the pedal, this is what we get on the neck pickup. All right, nice sweet tone. I love the tone on this amp. Now here guys, on the pedal, right, I'm gonna turn it on. I have the tone, I know it's hard to see by the way, but the tone is like around, let's say, what, that's like 30% maybe, output, or actually gain, sorry, all the way down, and the level a little bit more than halfway, and check it out, now we get this. Alright, so already, even with the output, right, at 0, I mean with the gain at 0, guys, or the overdrive at 0, that's already pushing the amp into some really nice, just overdriven sound. And here's the thing, guys, at least, I don't know, maybe with the normal one, but this one, I feel it doesn't cut a crazy amount of lows. It does cut some lows. Obviously, with the tone knob, it feels like it can cut more than that, but it feels a little bit less lows, of course. The highs are kind of the same, but obviously it has those mid frequencies, which are great for standing out in a mix. Now, by itself, again, without, with, again, it's adding quite, some amount of mids, all right, which is gonna make it stand out, but it also kind of sweetens up the tone, right? All right, now let's try one of the in-between positions. and let's just see what it does on the bridge position. Again, guys, there's like no overdrive right now at all in the pedal, right? So it's pretty much all coming from the actual, you know, pedal in reality, right? Now on the bridge, let me take away of that a little bit of that reverb. Sorry, it will have a little bit of reverb on my tone because that's just the way that I run it, and I'm trying to show what kind of tones I get with this pedal, guys. So I know a lot of people complain like, oh, you know, you should use it without, but that's just kind of the way that I like my cleanish or overdriven tone, guys. All right. Now, guys, when we use it with the, you know, with the bridge pickup, of course, it's gonna sound a little bit more honky because it is a humbucker. It already has mids, right? Humbuckers usually have more mids than single coils, usually. So it is gonna sound a little bit honky. And again, usually for my lower gains, I don't tend to use the bridge, at least on this guitar, for the lower gain tones. But as I get more high gain tones, then I do start to engage that pickup because it does feel that with more gain, it takes away some of that honkiness. But yeah, honky, right? Very like nasal like, which is not that bad, but obviously on the neck. Alright guys, now let's, you know, start seeing what, you know, how much gain we can get on this on a clean channel. Most people just tend to use it either with no gain or with like, you know, maybe a lot of gain, or maybe, actually most people maybe don't try it with like a bunch of gain. But, you know, actually I use this Tube Screamer as I combine it with other pedals, which I'll do in another video so that this one is not super mega long. But I do use my gain quite hard on this pedal because I do use it as a gain stage by itself. All right, but let's see. So now we have it around what? That's like a little bit more than 25%. So like, you know, maybe getting towards 30%. Okay, so again, a very usable tone. I do think that like a Tube Screamer can like sweeten up your sound a lot. So it's not gonna sound in a way very like aggressive, right? I mean, if you use like a high gain sound, then and we'll check that at the end. Yeah, but like, you know, for like a clean sound, I usually think it lets you cut a little bit more, but it does take a little bit of the bite away. Alright, let's try one in between. Let's try kind of the other one just to see what we get from there. A little bit too quacky or too, again, nasally because of that humbucker. And let's do our humbucker. Now here guys, what we can do is, this pedal actually has like quite a high amount of highs. So with this one, you just gotta watch out with your gear, because with some gear, it might sound a little bit harshish if you do a lot of highs, but you know, having a lot of highs is not a bad thing as long as you can control it, right? So let me raise, just for the bridge, our tone, right? That adds a little bit more bite, doesn't make it sound so nasal like. Now with that setting on the bridge, I think that sounds great. I mean, this bridge, by the way, this is a Tone Rider pickup that I installed. It just sounds amazing almost in anything you put on it, but you know, I love this sound. I think it's like a nice, sweet, like, you know, very, yeah, just very full. It adds a little bit of more push, of course. Right guys, now let's add, I guess we can kind of go by, you know, a few percentages. Now let's go back to our neck. Again, normal, you know, clean tone. Right now, you know, it's doing just barely any breakup, but it's pretty clean. All right, now over here, we put it a little bit less than halfway. Right, again, obviously adding more drive. I am raising the tone. As I kind of put it high in gain, I'm raising the tone more. And that's something that I don't know, I see happening in a lot of gain pedals that I use. The more gain, kind of like the more highs I seem to add, and the low gain, obviously the opposite. Now let's do, guys, our bridge. Still very nasally, right? I mean, for leads, sounds nice. It sounds really good for leads. Again, it's probably gonna push it in the mix really well. Still a little bit honky, but if you do like a chord, so a little bit like, you know, nasal like, right? Which, you know, it cut a little bit more. So let me put up the tone even a bit more. Sounds nice, guys. Sounds nice. Now let's put it a bit more than halfway, right? Let's see how much gain we can get. Again, a lot of people just seem to, use a tube screamer as like pushing the amp a little bit. But if you don't have a lot of budget, I think with an overdrive, you can get like a pretty nice overdriven, more than edge of the breakup kind of thing overdrive, right? It's not only just for, the edge kind of thing or just to push the amp. Now, it depends on what you prefer, right? But it can get quite, some gain from this. It's not going to be distortion, of course, but it's, it can get pretty gainy. So check it out. Clean tone again. Pedal on. Right now, I do have more highs on this. Well, sorry about that, guys. One of my cameras stopped working, but we're back. All right, so guys, as I was saying, now I'm gonna put my volume a little bit down because now it's adding a bit of volume. Check our clean. Yeah. There we go. So now, guys, I'm gonna put even more highs. Again, I think that the highs kind of like, since we got more mids, right? Now it sounds a little bit too honky. You add more highs, right? You put your tone up, and that does kind of help quite a lot. With the actual tone. I think it does actually a great tone for like, leads, guys. Obviously it's not gonna be like a metal kind of lead thing, but I think it does great. Alright, guys, now let's push it, let's say what, like 75% of the way, I guess. Again, that's quite a lot of gain, and that's on the neck, right? Let's see for a second how it cleans up. There we go. Guitar volume all the way. Alright, bridge. Alright, I think that could get you some crunch sounds, guys. Alright, guys, and let's just do it all the way now. Check it out. Let's see what the tone can do, right? Tone off. I love that tone. To me, that sounds great. Obviously, it's very nice and smooth, but in a mix, that's just not gonna work, guys. Right, so, if we do our tone all the way up, maybe not a little bit too shrill. Right? On the bridge, for the bridge, not too bad, but I think, if you do tone all the way up, it's just too much. There we go, that's tone like almost all the way up. You know, I never see a lot of people using an overdrive, a tube screamer like this, but I think you can get an awesome lead sound. On the neck. Right, great. Okay, now let's do, guys, for the last test, or just like the last tone check, I'm gonna put my second channel, all right, on my, you know, pretty heavyish, and we're gonna see how tight we can get it to sound. All right, guys, so check it out. Now we're in the second channel on my orange. Now, depends on what kind of pickup, but it can get pretty boomy, right? It also feels that if you put the tone too high, it can sound a little bit harsh, right? Put it kind of where I like it. All right, it's not the max gain, it's kind of the, you know, high gain that I like. Maybe actually, we could add a bit more. So check it out. I did take away the delay and reverb because for this type of tone, we tend to not use that, right? So check it out. So again, you know, it has like a nice, you know, punchy character to it, of course. It just has that orange sound, guys. But to me, it just sounds too loose, And if you're going for that loose tone, it's great. But you know, usually I like kind of like tighter gain sounds. Now I know it's an orange, right? But you can get some amazing tight tones. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna drop our overdrive all the way down. We're gonna put the tone knob all the way up and the volume all the way up. So check it out. Turn it on. Right? And that's a lot of gain, by the way. Again, without, with. Now, let's see what the tone knob does, right? So I'm taking the tone all the way up. Still sounds great. Maybe a little more vintagey, classic kind of gain. Right, now if I want it more tight, more modern, just put my tone all the way up. Obviously it's pushing more. It's also just way tighter. We're, way more, a lot of gain. So wait, well, can't control that. I don't have a noise gain on. Alright, but it's a beast. All right, guys. So on those high gain tones, you just gotta say it's brutal. I mean, this amp is brutal sounding already, but it turns it into like a complete beast with this pedal. So it is a must-have. At least if you have some kind of high gain amp, especially with oranges. I think oranges, when you put like a tube screamer in them, they just get so much more brutal, right? And it all depends. If you want like a more vintage kind of, high gain tone, you put your tone, low. If you want like a modern kind of like, just very like, aggressive kind of like modern thing, then you put your tone all the way up and it just sounds perfect. It pairs perfectly well. Now, as far as the other sounds, guys, again, one of the things that I don't like, as I said in the beginning, is that most people tend to just, do, overdrive down, boost all the way up, even if it's a clean amp, right? But I think there's so many usable tones as we saw in the video. Now, my favorite tone is when I put it like around 10, right? And then I put my tone knob somewhere around, hopefully you can see, but hopefully somewhere around like 11. That for me is like the perfect setting because that stacks perfectly with other pedals. When I need a little bit more from another pedal, let's say I'm doing like, a rhythm, martially kind of thing, and I'm going to do a solo. I push this pedal in, it just cuts through the mix much better. It just pushes it just enough for it to sound just perfect. So, this is like a must have, at least for me. For me, this is one of the pedals that no matter what I have on my board, this is always going to be there, right? Because again, it gives me like, those nice kind of like overdriven kind of tones, but it pushes my other pedals into, other types of tones. Now, if you're on a budget, right, and you're trying to see like a pedal that gives you a lot of everything, I think this one's a really good one too, because you can have, as we saw, like, really nice lead sound. You can get some crunch, you can get some overdrive. If you have an amp that has, gain, I just want to tighten things up, then you can do that too. So it is the type of pedal that can do many different things. And for me, the most important one is it cuts through the mix, guys. So many times that's happened to me that I go to a gig, I set like a new pedal or like, something up, whether it's a modular or like, actual pedals on an amp. And then I get to a gig and I'm like, man, it's not cutting, right? I need more. This is the one that usually, I use to save that kind of tone or to change things up a little bit. So, it's a great pedal, guys. And I am, very much on the camp of, I really like this pedal and it's amazing. And I always need to have it, just in case. Now, the only thing I do not like about this pedal is that those little tiny knobs, I know obviously the enclosure is tiny, right? And it saves space, but those little knobs are so freaking hard to see and to dial, guys. There is certain parts where you dial just a little bit more is too much, and then a little bit less, and now it's too little. So, it's not like a very gradual in a way. So that's my only grudge against it. But everything else, guys, a killer pedal. I had it for years, this one, by the way. Never broken or anything. Good quality, feels nice and sturdy. And yeah, that's it, guys. So, hopefully this video helps someone that's maybe looking for like, what can an overdrive pedal do? And if anything, guys, just, let me know your thoughts. All right. See you next time.